I'm Kurtop, and these are 100 ancient burials that even scare scientists. The mummy's hand with a coin, a mummified child's hand holding a copper coin, became a unique discovery that puzzled scientists and opened new horizons for the study of mummification and the use of copper as an antimicrobial agent. Discovered in 2005 at an abandoned cemetery in Nyar-Lorenz, Hungary, this find sparked wide interest among specialists. The analysis conducted by the team of researchers revealed that the copper deposited on the infant's body contributed to the preservation of the mummy. This became the first recorded case of mummification caused by copper. The scientists were also intrigued by the fact that the coin was in circulation in the mid-19th century, even though the burial took place in a cemetery that had been abandoned many years earlier. Such a discovery became an example of a unique case of mummification using copper, which may attract the attention of researchers and archaeologists in the future. This discovery provides an opportunity to expand our knowledge about ancient civilizations, their traditions and customs, and also about the use of various materials and methods for preserving the dead. Scientists need to study more similar cases to understand how copper and other materials were used in mummification, and what beliefs and customs ancient cultures had related to this process. A female chief and mythological creatures. Archaeologists have discovered a throne room in Peru that dates back to the 7th century AD. Researchers found this ancient hall with columns and colorful frescoes in the coastal Panyama Valley, more than 400 kilometers from Lima. Scientists believe that the Moche culture built the room about 1,300 years ago, and it belonged to a female chief. The frescoes on the walls depict a woman on a throne receiving visitors. Archaeologists suggest that this may be an image of a ruler. The entire space of the hall was decorated with mythological scenes, with no empty surfaces. Archaeologist Jose Ochitoma states that the scenes on the frescoes tell about the ideology of the Mochica, and nearby, another room was discovered, the Hall of Intertwined Serpents. There, researchers saw frescoes depicting warriors and mythological creatures that had not been seen before in Peruvian archaeology. A Roman city in the Sahara. For almost 1,000 years, the sands of the Sahara Desert concealed the ancient Roman city of Timgad. Even the famous Pompeii could envy its state of preservation. To this day, Timgad is considered the best preserved city designed with a perpendicular layout in accordance with Roman traditions of urban planning. Timgad was discovered in 1765 by a research group led by the Scotsman James Bruce, who was searching for the source of the Nile but stumbled upon a magnificently preserved Roman city. At that time, the traveler could not appreciate the scale of his discovery. In his diary, he described it as unusual but full of elegant structures. During a brief excavation, several statues of Emperor Antoninus Pius were found, leaving no doubt that this was a Roman city. In London, James Bruce's account of his journey through Africa received a cold reception. So feeling insulted, he chose not to publish anything. And only in 1790, at the insistence of his friend Dennis Barrington, was the book Travels to Discover the Source of the Nile in the years 1768, 1769, 70, 71, 72, and 73 published. However, other well-known explorers harshly criticized it as untrustworthy, and the city buried in sand was forgotten for almost another 100 years. Bruce's research was continued by Lambert Playfair, a British diplomat who read Bruce's work and decided to set out in search of the ancient city. Large-scale excavations of the city began in 1881 and continued for about 80 years. A large public library was discovered, along with 14 public baths, a theater with 3,500 seats, a baptismal basilica with a font, a 15-meter triumphal arch, and more than 200 mosaics. The city had a water supply system that still works to this day. There were public toilets built over special channels through which water constantly flowed. In general, it was no worse than any imperial city. Overall, Timgad was built in the Roman style down to the smallest details. It was a true fragment of the great empire, which lasted until around 700 AD, located at the foothills of the Atlas Mountains. It was meant to ensure the safety of the coastal areas from Berber nomads. In fact, constant raids by barbarians devastated the city, and a powerful sandstorm buried it beneath the sand for almost 1,000 years, preserving it from destruction. Voids. Scientists want to perform an ultrasound scan on the huge pyramid that is 140 meters tall. They plan to use large telescopes to search for particles that will help us see what is hidden inside. The most interesting thing is that cosmic rays are used for this. They will help reveal the mystery of the two enigmatic voids inside the pyramid. One of them is located right above the large passage leading to the king's chamber. Its size is impressive, 30 meters long and 6 meters high. Scientists are still not sure what awaits us inside. One large space or a series of small rooms. It could be a hidden burial chamber of Khufu, or perhaps this place played a role during the construction of the pyramid. To solve this mystery, scientists use muons, elementary particles that are formed when cosmic rays collide with atoms in the Earth's atmosphere. With their help, it's possible to create a map of the voids inside the pyramid. Muons behave differently when interacting with various materials such as stone or air. This way, scientists can use muons to see things that are inaccessible to ordinary observation. An untouched tomb. Just 30 kilometers from Cairo, archaeologists discovered an ancient untouched tomb that's 4,400 years old. This amazing discovery was made in the famous Saqqara necropolis. This tomb was built for a high-ranking priest who served under a pharaoh of the 5th dynasty and his family. You can tell that he lived a full life. On the walls, there are images of people making wine, playing musical instruments, sailing boats, and hunting. The tomb building is truly impressive. Its interior is decorated with large painted statues and impressive inscriptions that reveal the names of the priest's wife and mother. Archaeologists have already started exploring 5 burial shafts inside the tomb, and we still have a lot to learn about ancient life in Egypt. Mysterious objects that are 130,000 years old. Archaeological discoveries in the Raciborz area of Poland have shed light on the activities of Neanderthals more than 130,000 years ago. For 2 years, an international team of specialists, including those from Wrocław and Silesian universities, as well as the Czech Academy of Sciences, conducted research planning to study the geological structure of the sites. Professor Andrzej Wiśniewski noted that the discovery of stone tools was an unexpected gift. Artifacts found 10 meters underground, which were in deposits formed during the last ice age, demonstrate that this area was visited by Neanderthals, who left traces of their presence here. Archaeologists emphasize the uniqueness of some tools that have double-sided asymmetrical cutting edges, resembling modern wide-bladed knives. These tools may have been used for special tasks such as butchering game, and similar items are rarely found at other ancient sites north of the Carpathians and the Alps. The Babylonian vision of the earth and beyond, the Babylonian map of the world, or Imago Mundi, is one of the oldest known maps created around the 8th century BCE. The tablet made of clay depicts the ancient Babylonians' view of the earth. At the center of the map is Babylon, located on the Euphrates River. The map is surrounded by important geographical features: Susa to the south, Urartu to the northeast, and Haban to the northwest. Beyond this territory are triangular regions that, according to researchers, symbolize unknown lands or mountainous areas. The map is surrounded by a salty river called the Bitter River, which they believe flowed around the entire planet. Attention is drawn to mythical inscriptions mentioning the creation of land and sea by the god Moroz. This makes the map not only a geographical, but also a cosmological artifact. The connection to UFOs arises from the triangular areas beyond the map. Some researchers believe that the ancient inhabitants of Babylon tried to depict unknown lands, which they associated with divine or extraterrestrial beings. Ruins of a luxurious winery. Archaeologists have discovered an ancient winery, 2,000 years old, at the Villa of the Quintilli, located by the famous Appian Way. They believe that this was an imperial winery, where guests were not only treated to wine, but also entertained. The villa is located not far from Rome. It used to belong to the wealthy Quintilli family, but later became imperial property. The villa is known for its beautiful architecture, baths, and even an arena for chariot races and gladiator fights. In 2017 and 2018, archaeologists discovered traces of a winery near the arena. It was built or expanded during the reign of Emperor Gordian III. The winery had an area for pressing grapes, a vat for settling the must, and a wine cellar with clay amphorae for storing wine. The winery was very luxurious. The floors of the staircase were laid with expensive marble from different countries. Spectacles were held here for guests who relaxed in the luxurious halls around the winery's courtyard. Archaeologists believe that this winemaking complex offered guests not only delicious wine, but also wonderful entertainment in the form of theatrical performances. A Roman period tombstone with a rare epitaph bearing an inscription in verse that was rare for that time was discovered during archaeological excavations in the southern suburb of Tauric Chersonese. Currently, this is the territory of Sevastopol, Crimea. Archaeologists are conducting excavations near the area of the Tauric Chersonese Museum Reserve on the site of former military units. During the Hellenistic, ancient, and medieval periods, this area was a suburb of Chersonesus. In particular, a cemetery was located here for several centuries. The monument is an interesting example of early Roman funerary sculpture, but it's inaccurate to claim nothing like it has existed before. Similar tombstones were previously found in the Chersonesus area, but this inscription is unique because it's written in verse. On the tombstone, which is made of Proconnesian marble and has survived almost intact, there is a carved image of a boy, and below it, an inscription. According to scholars, the work was most likely done by a local sculptor at the end of the 1st or 2nd century AD. The inscription has now been translated. The research does not end here. The inscription reads, "Here lies Metrodor, son of Apollonidov. Farewell. I, this grave stele, was erected by my tutor, father, and nurse." The dialect of the inscription is clearly Ionic, not Doric. It is a dialect of the ancient Greek language, spoken not only by Greeks, but also by educated residents of other provinces of the Roman Empire. This also applies to the names of the son and the father. Perhaps this family moved to Chersonesus from one of the Milesian colonies. Miletus is a major Greek city located in what is now Turkey. Its inhabitants founded several colonies in the Black Sea region. How Catholics put a dead man on trial. Once, a strange and terrifying event occurred in the history of the Catholic Church. Pope Stephen VI decided to hold a trial against his predecessor, Pope Formosus. But there was one problem. Formosus had already been dead and buried for a year. Incredibly, Stephen VI still decided to go through with it. He ordered Formosus's body to be exhumed from the grave, dressed in papal robes, and seated on the throne in one of the most famous churches in Rome. And then the trial began, which became known as the Synod of Horrors, or the Cadaver Trial. Since Formose naturally could not speak or defend himself, there was a man sitting behind him who spoke for him. In the end, the dead pope was accused of all sins and punished. They cut off the fingers on his right hand, dragged his body through Rome on a horse, and threw him into the river. I want to remind you that all this was happening to someone who was already dead. Pope Stephen VI could not enjoy this outcome for long. People were outraged by such a terrible act, and soon a rebellion began. Stephan was put in prison, where he was eventually killed. Later, another pope, John IX, forbade putting the dead on trial so that this would never happen again. And Formosus's body was found by monks and buried again, this time with proper respect, in St. Peter's Basilica. So even the most important people in history can sometimes do terrible and strange things. Write your opinion in the comments. Don't you think that there have been too many terrible scandals associated with the Catholic Church throughout its history? And what could be the reason for that? The Great Comet of 1861. The 19th century became a special time for those who loved to watch the stars. During this period from 1811 to 1882, people observed as many as 8 great comets that captured the imagination of scientists. These celestial phenomena inspired artists, composers, and even amateur astronomers. Among all these comets, a special place belongs to the Donati Comet of 1858. It was the first comet to be photographed. But an even more amazing event was the appearance of the Great Comet of 1861. It came so close to Earth that our planet literally passed through its tail. For 2 days, this tail blocked the sunlight, creating an unusual twilight even during the daytime. The comet was discovered by a farmer from Australia, John Tebbutt. This young amateur astronomer spotted it in the constellation Eridanus on May 13, 1861. At first, he mistook it for a star, but later realized it was a comet. After confirming his discovery, Tebbutt sent a letter to the local observatory. He even published an article in the Sydney Morning Herald newspaper. News of the comet's discovery quickly spread around the world. In June 1861, the comet was already being observed in the northern hemisphere. Amazing descriptions of its brightness and size were published in English newspapers. The comet's tail occupied a huge part of the sky and was visible even against the daylight. The real sensation was that the Earth crossed through the comet's tail. This caused rare atmospheric phenomena. The sky took on yellow and reddish shades, and the sunlight became unusually weak. The magnificence of the comet impressed contemporaries, and for John Tebbutt, its discovery marked the beginning of a brilliant career. Later, he built his own observatory and made many valuable observations. His contribution to astronomy is immortalized on the Australian $100 bill, and the Great Comet of 1861 itself still remains one of the brightest events in the history of space observation. Weapons and clothing that are 48,000 years old. An international research team from the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History in Germany, Griffith University in Australia, and the Department of Archaeology of the Government of Sri Lanka. They presented evidence of the earliest use of bows and arrows outside of Africa. The study was published in the journal Science Advances. Scientists examined artifacts that are 45,000 to 48,000 years old. They were found in the Fahian Lena cave. It is located in the tropical forests of Sri Lanka. Among the discovered tools, analysis revealed bone arrowheads. Until now, the age of the oldest arrows found in Southeast Asia was about 32,000 years. In addition, this weapon is much older than what was found in Europe. Only in Africa have older arrows been found. The traces preserved on the arrowheads indicate that they were used for hunting. Bone tools with single and double hooks were also discovered in the cave. Detailed microscopic analysis helped prove that these tools were used for weaving fishing nets and probably for making clothes. This was indicated by microscopic fibers that were found on the hooks using modern electron microscopy. According to Lingley, clear evidence of colored pearl production by prehistoric people was also found. The beads were dyed with ochre. Some artifacts indicate that people at that time were already familiar with the technology of producing artificial pearls, which were obtained using freshwater mollusks. The jewelry is about 45,000 years old. Its established production may indicate that pearls were made for sale. It is possible that they were traded for other goods. This means that complex social networks could have existed in the tropics of modern-day Sri Lanka 45,000 years ago. The curse of the Polish king's tomb. I will tell you about a mysterious story connected to the Jagiellonian curse. You probably know that Casimir IV Jagiellonian was a very successful king of Poland. He made his dynasty one of the most important in Europe and even gained access to the sea. When Casimir died, his wife Elizabeth of Habsburg commissioned an amazing tomb for him. It was a true masterpiece of art. It was decorated with coats of arms and biblical scenes. When the queen also died, she was buried next to her husband. In 1973, it was decided to open this tomb to carry out restoration. However, after working on the tomb, 10 out of the 12 people who participated in the restoration died. This caused rumors about the Jagiellonian curse. Supposedly, touching the tomb leads to death. But you know what? Scientists found an explanation for this. There was a dangerous fungus in the tomb that causes serious illnesses. This fungus usually lives on dead bodies, and when people opened the tomb, they inhaled its toxic spores. There is a theory that this fungus also lives on ancient Egyptian mummies. Maybe the workers who opened the pharaoh's tombs also suffered from the mummy's curse because of this fungus. But this is just a theory, since there is no direct evidence linking the fungus to the deaths. In the end, the fungus could have become the real curse of the Jagiellons and Egyptian mummies. Even though it's not mystical, it still sounds mysterious and interesting, doesn't it? So even today, when passing by ancient tombs and mummies, remember this mysterious story and be careful. Arabian jewels in Russia. In Veliki Novgorod, a record-sized hoard was discovered consisting of Arabian silver jewelry and coins dating back to the late 10th century. The discovery was made on Vozdvijenskaya Street during excavations at a construction site. This hoard, named the Vozdvizhensky hoard, became the third such find in the city. 1,000 items were found in the hoard.
800 целых и фрагментированных серебряных.
Also, more than 80 silver ornaments with a total weight of about 3 kilograms. Among the ornaments, some of the oldest silver crosses in Rus were discovered, which were previously little known. According to scientists, this is one of the largest archaeological discoveries in the history of Veliki Novgorod. Evidence of extraterrestrial visitors. Now we come to one of the most controversial theories about the pyramids. Some believe that aliens helped build the pyramids. In the 1960s and 70s, this assumption became popular thanks to Erich von Däniken's book, Chariots of the Gods. He said that extraterrestrial beings came to Earth a long time ago and helped build the magnificent pyramids. But why do we think that? First of all, the builders of the pyramids cut and installed the stone blocks with unusual precision. Some people believe that such work would have been impossible without futuristic technologies that could have been provided by aliens. Secondly, the pyramids seem to be arranged according to special astronomical patterns. For example, the sides of the Great Pyramid of Khufu align perfectly with the cardinal points of the compass. Some even suggest that this was done intentionally to serve as a beacon for incoming alien spacecraft. However, many scientists want to see evidence. They claim that there is no evidence of aliens arriving on Earth, and everything about the pyramids can be explained by earthly technologies. The ancient Egyptians used giant panels to move stone blocks to the top of the pyramid. This may sound primitive, but the effectiveness of this method is undeniable. At the moment, there is no evidence confirming the arrival of aliens. And although the pyramids remain some of the most amazing wonders of the world, most likely, they were created solely by human hands and minds. Hidden tunnel. Beneath the colossal temple dedicated to the god Osiris, a mysterious tunnel has been discovered, which had been hidden for centuries. And this is where things get really interesting. There are theories that this tunnel might lead to the long-lost tomb of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. A joint Dominican-Egyptian archaeological mission from the University of San Domingo discovered this tunnel, which is 1,305 meters long, beneath the temple of Taposiris Magna in Alexandria. The lead archaeologist, Dr. Kathleen Martins, called this discovery an engineering marvel. According to her, the design of the tunnel is very similar to the design of the Eupalinian Tunnel in Greece, which was an aqueduct before it collapsed. Research has shown that this area of the Egyptian coast suffered from at least 23 earthquakes between 320 and 1303 AD, which archaeologists believe led to the collapse of the tunnel. Scientists have been studying the ruins around Taposiris Magna for several years. It's possible that this tunnel does not lead to the long-lost tomb of Cleopatra. But who knows what else Taposiris Magna is hiding? Perhaps future archaeological work will reveal and uncover this greatest mystery.
Хозяин терракотовой армии.
Half a century ago, a unique discovery was made. The mausoleum of the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huangdi, was found. After years of research, the ruler's final resting place remains untouched. Scientists do not dare to disturb his peace. In 1974, when farmer Yang Zhifa and his brothers were digging a well at the foot of Mount Lishan, his shovel hit something hard. That something turned out to be a fragment of a clay statue. This discovery led to an entire collection of artifacts. But the farmer was only able to receive a symbolic tin win for his discovery. The archaeologists who took on the task soon discovered the terracotta army, which is believed to be the guardians of the great Qin Shi Huangdi. But the mystery of the tomb remains unsolved. After all, legends say that it is filled with mercury, which the emperor considered a magical elixir. Modern research has confirmed a high concentration of this element in the area. Nowadays, scientists are making plans on how to bypass the ancient traps and get inside the tomb. They are considering the possibility of using muons, subatomic particles, that will help to see what is hidden in the depths of the mausoleum without disturbing its rest. The message of the aliens. Easter Island, lost in the southern part of the Pacific Ocean, became famous for its giant stone statues called moai, and the mysterious tablets with rongo-rongo inscriptions. These ancient tablets, covered with strange hieroglyphs, still remain one of the greatest archaeological mysteries. Scientists believe that rongo-rongo is the script of the Rapa Nui civilization, which flourished on the island until the 18th century. The history of their discovery begins in 1864, when the French missionary Eugène Hérault first noticed the wooden tablets covered with unusual signs. The tablets were made from the wood of the toramiro tree, which grows on the island, and it could be found in almost every home. However, soon most of these artifacts disappeared due to internal wars and destruction. About 25 tablets have survived, and their study has revealed a unique writing style that resembles an inverted boustrophodon. Such a way of recording signs had previously only been found among the Incas. The tablets depict figures of animals, plants, and anthropomorphic beings. Scientists suggest that these symbols might have been used to record rituals and myths. Of particular interest is the similarity between rongo-rongo and other ancient scripts. Some signs resemble the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt, India, as well as the symbols of the Arab civilization that flourished in the Indus Valley. Parallels have been noted with Kuna Indian writings from Central America and drawings on Sumatra, leading to theories about ancient cultures connecting across the ocean. Attempts to decipher rongo-rongo continue to this day, but so far, these writings have not been fully understood. One theory is that they describe rituals involving sacrifices to the gods. Another hypothesis, more fantastical, suggests an extraterrestrial origin for these symbols, hinting at contact with alien civilizations. Otherwise, how could people living on different continents in those distant times have had similar writing systems? While today, despite having countless ways to connect through phones, satellites, and the internet, we still speak different languages. The mystery of rongo-rongo remains unsolved, but its study continues to inspire scientists and enthusiasts around the world. Artifacts of the Yana people. British explorer Taradan Stry organized an expedition to the abandoned cities of the Maya in the early 20th century. The guide leading them through the jungle suddenly fell ill and passed away. The travelers, left without a guide, had to find their own way. Every day they explored the surroundings in search of a way forward, and one day they stumbled upon the walls of an ancient temple. The explorers set up camp beneath the temple walls, deciding to thoroughly investigate it. After making torches, they headed inside the temple. They discovered a spacious hall decorated with bas-reliefs. Upon seeing them, Stry immediately noted their strong resemblance to Egyptian ones, as he had spent a lot of time on expeditions in Africa. Next, they found two enormous pedestals, on which some strange geometric elements were placed. Initially, they thought they were statues, but soon realized they were mechanisms. They were made of some unknown metal, while everything else around was made of stone. Nearby, there were tools lying around as if they had been hastily abandoned, which upon closer inspection turned out to be parts of mechanisms. The researchers spent a lot of time trying to figure out how these unusual objects worked, but they never succeeded. They only suggested that it was something resembling an engine, but an even more interesting discovery awaited them further on. They found a passage blocked by a huge stone. After exerting considerable effort to move it aside, they came across an obstacle made of several similar stones. Breaking their way through with pickaxes, the travelers entered a corridor with very unusual acoustics. It led them to a burial chamber, and there, a real miracle awaited them. In the burial sarcophagi, they found the remains of unusual creatures. The main creature was in the center, its remains wrapped in silk cloths. The head was larger than a human's, with huge eye sockets and a small mouth, so small that it was unlikely it could speak. Similar but smaller creatures were located nearby. There were also tiny sarcophagi around the perimeter containing the remains of embryos and infants, which looked more human-like. Upon returning to Boston, Strake, as he had planned, sent the collected artifacts to his acquaintance Marilyn, who was considered a specialist in humanoids. The artifacts remained in Marilyn's collection. Now they can be seen in his museum in England. Ancient chariots in China. Long ago in China, archaeologists discovered an amazing treasure: 5 ancient chariots with horses and 7 graves with people beneath them. This was a burial from about 1,000 years before the Common Era at the end of the Bronze Age. Horses were very important animals for people of that time, and they used them for fast travel and to establish connections with other cultures. All the horses were adult males aged between 9 and 12 years and were used in chariots as draft animals. It is possible that they were trained for pulling chariots from a young age. When the horses were in their prime, they were buried together with deceased people as part of a ritual. This amazing discovery helps us learn more about ancient cultures and their relationship with horses and chariots. But that's not all the archaeologists did. They also found evidence that horses were used in burial rituals with or without chariots, which became especially important during the Zhou era.
11-3 века до нашей эры.
During the excavation of the Shijia archaeological site in Ganqiu province, scientists found a pit with chariots dating back to the middle of the first millennium BC. Sarcophagi. Archaeologists discovered unique tombs and burial mass that are as much as 4,500 years old, and they were found near the pyramids of Giza, in the heart of the oldest necropolis. Several tombs from the Old Kingdom era were discovered there, the oldest of which dates back to the 25th century. BC ancient inscriptions and decorations have been preserved in it. In one of the tombs was Pequeng, the senior court judge and priest of the goddess Mat. He oversaw purification rituals in the pyramid temples of kings Khafra, Userkaf, and Nusera. The second inhabitant of the tomb was his relative Nui, a nobleman with 5 court titles and a priest in the temple of Khafra. Excavations began in August 2018, and to reach these tombs, about 450,000 cubic meters of sand had to be moved. Some tombs were looted in ancient times but were reused for burials in the 7th to 6th centuries BC. Thanks to this, among the later wooden sarcophagi, amazing works of art were found. Magnificent clay and wooden funerary masks. And all this was found not far from the cemetery of the pyramid builders. This proves that the pyramids were not built by slaves, but by ordinary people who were buried next to their kings. The discovery of 16 hands. Recently, archaeologists found something shocking in the city of Avaris. 16 human hands buried in 4 pits near the palace. And you know what's the strangest thing? All these hands are right hands, and they all belong to rather large people. These hands are evidence of an ancient custom described in Egyptian texts. Soldiers would cut off the enemy's right hand and exchange it for gold. By cutting off the right hand, soldiers not only made it easier to count defeated enemies, but also symbolically took away their strength. Whom these hands belonged to remains a mystery. These could have been the hands of Egyptians or those whom the Hyksos fought against. Such a cruel custom existed among both the Hyksos and the Egyptians. No one knows who started it first, but cruel treatment of prisoners was common in ancient Egypt. A new giant pyramid. In Indonesia, a giant underground pyramid called Gunung Padang has been discovered, which is older than Stonehenge and the pyramids of Giza. This place is shrouded in mystery and is considered sacred by the local people of the island of West Java. It is known as Punden Berundak. Archaeological work has only just begun, but it has already shown that Gunung Padang may be the oldest pyramid structure in the world, built on top of an extinct volcano before the advent of agriculture. The latest research suggests that there may be chambers inside the hill, filled with unknown contents. The name Mountain of Enlightenment emphasizes that an ancient civilization may have turned the volcanic hill into the foundation for a pyramid many millennia ago. Radiocarbon dating shows that construction began around the last ice age, making it more than 16,000 and possibly even 27,000 years old, which puts it in the same age range as Göbekli Tepe. Between 2011 and 2015, a group of specialists conducted a comprehensive analysis using drilling and seismic surveys. They determined that Gunung Padang was built in several stages. By examining the interior of the hill, scientists discovered signs of hidden chambers, some of which reach 15 meters in length and 10 meters in height, confirming the uniqueness and mystery of this ancient structure. They uncovered an extraordinary burial. In a female burial from the 6th century AD, discovered in eastern Lincolnshire in England, archaeologists found a unique artifact, a Roman bowl dating back to the 3rd century AD. This discovery, made during the excavation of a cemetery in Scremby, allows researchers to explore the interaction between Anglo-Saxon and Roman cultures, and also sheds light on the burial customs of that time. The bowl, made of copper, was found in the grave of a young woman designated as K18. In addition to the bowl, the deceased was also found with 2 brooches and bracelets. The placement of the artifact near the woman's head indicates its symbolic significance. The bowl, known as the Scremby Bowl, has been preserved in excellent condition. Its height is 5.7 centimeters, and its volume is about 280 milliliters. Its decoration is done in the Roman style. Patterns of crescents and hearts are covered with a red aquamarine center. The bluish-violet enamel demonstrates the skill of Roman craftsmen. It is believed that the bowl was made in France and brought to England in the 3rd century AD. Analysis of the inner surface of the bowl showed traces of unheated pork fat. This may indicate its use for ritual or medical purposes. Pork fat was used at that time to treat infections, which is consistent with Byzantine texts from that period. The uniqueness of the find also lies in the fact that the bowl has survived intact, unlike most Roman artifacts which are usually found in fragments.
Камень Бен-Бен.
This amazing artifact inspired the Egyptians to create 2 of their greatest architectural achievements, the pyramids and the obelisks. Imagine a sacred stone in the shape of a pyramid called the Ben-Ben, or pyramidion. Every day, the first rays of the rising sun fell upon it, granting everyone around it power and enlightenment. This stone was kept in the religious center of Egypt, Heliopolis, where, according to legend, the creation of the world began in ancient times. However, at some unknown point in history, the original Ben-Ben stone disappeared. This stone was associated not only with the gods Adam and Ra, but also with the Bennu bird, which, according to myths, cried out on the Ben-Ben stone, announcing the beginning of the creation of the world. Thanks to these connections, the Ben-Ben stone became an integral part of the solar temples of ancient Egypt. The Egyptians covered it with gold, and the stone reflected the sun's rays, filling the temples with light. This stone inspired the design of obelisk and pyramid tops, which are still seen today in museums worldwide. The first accurate image of the moon. The early 17th century became an era of great discoveries in astronomy thanks to the invention of the telescope. The moon, which had previously been considered a smooth celestial body, appeared before scientists in a completely new light. In 1609, Galileo Galilei used a telescope for the first time to study the moon, discovering numerous craters, mountains, and valleys on its surface. His observations marked a true revolution in the understanding of celestial bodies. Galileo recorded his discoveries in a series of detailed drawings that depicted the real topography of the moon for the first time. These images were included in his work, Starry Messenger, published in 1610. Thanks to these sketches, it became clear that the surface of the moon is much more complex than ancient philosophers had assumed, and consists of irregularities resembling mountains on Earth. Interestingly, Galileo was not the first to point a telescope at the moon. Thomas Harriot, an English astronomer, began his observations of the moon as early as 1609. However, his drawings were less detailed and not as widely known. It was Galileo who had a key influence on the development of astronomy. The discovery of the moon as an uneven and dynamic object inspired many generations of researchers. Some ufologists believe that Galileo's drawings might have been the first depictions of anomalies on the surface of the moon. This interest continues today, giving rise to many theories of certain lunar features. Giant jade dragon. Chinese archaeologists have discovered the largest jade dragon of the Neolithic Hongshan culture. The artifact was found in the Yuanbaoshan stone tomb, located in Hoshun, Aohan, Inner Mongolia. The jade dragon measures 15.8 centimeters in length, 9.5 centimeters in width, and 3 centimeters in thickness, and is a unique find with no analogs in this region. The excavations also revealed architectural remains, fragments of human bones, tombs, hearths, and various artifacts, including jade and painted ceramic items. Among them were tripod bowls and basins. Radiocarbon dating showed that the site belongs to the late Hongshan culture and dates back more than 5,000 years. Maya frescoes in a private house in Guatemala. During the renovation of one of the old private residences, Unique colored frescoes of the Ixchel people were discovered under several layers of plaster, which still represent one of the largest groups of the Maya civilization. Polish archaeologists examined several buildings in the ancient city of Chajul in western Guatemala. As a result, an unprecedented set of wall paintings was discovered, which are dated to the colonial period. According to scientists, the frescoes were created between 1524 and 1821 AD. The first of them was accidentally discovered in 2003 by a local resident who started renovating his house. However, until 2008, due to the unstable political situation in the country, scientists could not access these discoveries. For the same reasons, researchers were not allowed into Chajul for more than 40 years. Only now have the frescoes been documented. Their iconography is unique because it combines elements from the pre-Columbian era with motifs brought by Europeans. For the first time, such images have been found not in a religious building, but in a residential house. Scientists conducted iconographic, chemical, and radiocarbon analyses of the paintings. Most of them date back to the 17th and 18th centuries. Their appearance was made possible by the revival of indigenous religious traditions amid the weakening of Spanish colonial oppression. The frescoes are painted in bright colors. They have been preserved quite well. The scenes depicted on them are connected by a storyline. The main characters are musicians and dancers. Scholars note the fusion of indigenous and Spanish traditions, which is reflected in the iconography. For example, the frescoes depict people dressed entirely in European costumes, but there are also people whose clothing is a mix of indigenous and Spanish outfits. The same can be said about the instruments. The largest cities of the Ixil people, Chajul, Nebaj, and Quetzal, were captured by the Spanish in the 16th century, but they have survived to this day. The local population has largely preserved its traditions and cultural identity. According to scholars, the total number of Maya descendants today is estimated to be about 8 million people. About 6.2 million of them live in Guatemala. The discovery is worth more than gold or silver. In ancient Egyptian tombs, sometimes amazing discoveries are found that are on par with gold and silver. One such example is a worker's toolbox with tools found in the tomb of the carpenter Ankef, located in the necropolis near Asyut in Middle Egypt. There was an inscription on the box dedicated to Anubis, the lord of Keraret, and a reference to the name Ankef. On the side of the toolbox, there was also a list of tools that were supposed to be inside: 6 axes, 6 adzes chisels, and 6 other tools with copper blades, possibly saws. However, the contents of the box turned out to be different: 7 axes, 7 adzes, 5 chisels, and not a single saw. The discrepancy between the list and the contents is explained by the fact that the entire toolbox and the tools are just models. The length of the box is 18 centimeters, and the length of the miniature axes is only 15 centimeters. These are symbolic tools intended to be used only in the world of the dead, where Ankef continued to work as a carpenter for his great master, the Pharaoh of Egypt. Much more important than the contents of the chest itself was the inscription on its side, which served as a kind of spell. The find dates back to the Middle Kingdom, around 1981 to 1936 BC. The box is made of wood covered with a layer of lime. This exhibit is now located in the Metropolitan Museum in New York, serving as an example of amazing artifacts that testify to the beliefs and customs of the ancient Egyptians. Secret rooms. So what could be hidden inside the pyramids? There are many theories here, from religious objects and treasures to ancient scrolls full of knowledge. And some are even convinced that artifacts of cosmic gods could be hidden in the secret chambers of the Egyptian pyramids. Do you remember the story from the 1990s when a robot lowered into one of the shafts encountered mysterious doors? Ancient Greek and Roman scholars were captivated by the pyramid builders' craftsmanship, and medieval Arab chroniclers, such as Al-Masudi and Al-Idrisi, wrote about wonders, gold, and mummies that might have been found inside. Not all scholars agree that the pyramids served only as tombs. Supporters of alternative history claim that the Great Pyramid could have been a time capsule, a repository of knowledge from an ancient civilization that became the foundation of ancient Egypt. And there is an even more exotic theory from Christopher Dunn, who suggested that the Great Pyramid could have been nothing less than an energy device. And remember the Hall of Records, the legendary ancient library that some researchers say holds all ancient knowledge, which could challenge our understanding of the world.
Бегазинская пирамида в Казахстане.
In 2016, in the vast expanses of the Karaganda region of Kazakhstan, archaeologists discovered something incredible: the Bagazi Pyramid, a stepped structure that may open a new chapter in history. This structure, belonging to the Scythian Saka culture, is part of the Bagazi Dandibai civilization, which flourished during the Bronze Age. The pyramid, rising on the Karajartas hill on the left bank of the Taldi Nura, just 90 kilometers from Karaganda, became the final resting place for the leader of the local nomads. Research has shown that its age ranges between the 12th and 14th centuries BC. Artifacts found inside tell of the turbulent history of the steppes, from metal exports to religious rituals, all leading us to the origins of statehood in these lands. The proto-urban settlement of Kent, near which sacrificial altars were found, points to deep connections with the Karasuk culture and even with ancient Mesopotamia. Chinese Star Atlas. In 1907, a unique find was discovered in the caves of Dunhuang, China, a star atlas created in the mid-7th century. This ancient document is considered the oldest known astronomical chart. The atlas reflects the deep understanding Chinese astronomers had of the structure of the celestial sphere, which significantly surpassed the knowledge available in Europe at that time. The map from Dunhuang is striking in its accuracy. It contains depictions not only of major constellations, but also of smaller ones, as well as faint stars that remained unnoticed on Western star maps for a long time. Unlike Western traditions, where stars were connected into mythological figures, Chinese astronomers used simple imaginary lines to group stars. This made it possible to maintain scientific rigor and avoid subjective interpretations. The atlas represents an important stage in the development of astronomy, showing how far the ancient Chinese had advanced in exploring the cosmos. It is possible that this map was used not only for astronomical observations, but also for predictions and navigation, which made it a tool of strategic importance. Some researchers believe that such precise knowledge of the starry sky could have been connected with observations of unusual objects in the sky. The legends of ancient China are full of references to celestial chariots and luminous phenomena, which gives reason to associate such star atlases with an interest in extraterrestrial phenomena. Celtic village and Roman settlement. Archaeological breakthrough in Munich. On the northern outskirts of this German metropolis, scientists stumbled upon an astonishing discovery: the remains of an ancient Celtic village dating back 2,500 years, along with traces of Roman settlers. This village, which flourished during the Latin period of Celtic civilization, was home to our ancestors up until the first millennium AD. And now, while digging for a new residential area, archaeologists have discovered houses from that era, whose outlines we see as mysterious circles on the ground. At the very center of the settlement stood an impressive building, surrounded by wooden structures resembling colonnades. It was possibly a gathering place for the local community. Archaeologists also found different types of dwellings and evidence that the inhabitants lived in temples, in willow houses. The amazing cemeteries from that era, with evidence from Celtic and Roman times, show us that this area was inhabited and prosperous for many centuries. Every ceramic plate, jug with an intact handle, soapstone drinking vessel, and even a rare sickle from the burials tells the story of days long past. Instead of a hand, a knife. 4 years ago, a Lombard necropolis was discovered in northern Italy, apparently dating back to the 7th or 8th century AD. Hundreds of human and several animal remains were found. Archaeologists focused on a 40 to 50-year-old man with his right arm amputated at the mid-forearm. One version suggests he lost his limb due to a domestic injury. However, according to another version, considering that the Lombard kingdom participated in numerous wars, the man could have lost his arm in one of the battles. However, archaeologists were intrigued by the fragment of his arm's skeleton that showed signs of biomechanical stress. Distinct deformations characteristic of long-term prosthesis use were clearly visible on the arm bones, and the man's teeth served as confirmation of this. Significant wear on the teeth on the right side of the jaw indicated that he often had to use them to secure the prosthesis with straps. The man's skeleton was positioned differently from his comrades' remains in the burial, while the knives and other weapons of those buried there were placed to the right and left beside them, and their arms were extended along the body. The disabled man's right arm was bent and lay across his torso. At the same time, the knife was located at the site of the amputated wrist. There, the archaeologist also found a D-shaped buckle and apparently a decayed leather fragment. According to scientists, it could have been part of a special cap covering the amputated limb. It is obvious that after the amputation, the bone healed quickly, an extremely rare event in an era when there were no antibiotics. Moreover, the man who lost part of his limb lived for a long time after the operation, and even used a prosthesis, albeit a primitive one.
Невероятное открытие под водами Нила.
Archaeologists made an amazing discovery under the waters of the Nile in the Aswan area, a collection of ancient Egyptian artifacts and rock paintings related to the era when the city experienced a powerful flood. The relics found date back to the reigns of such pharaohs as Amenhotep III, Thutmose IV, and Psamtik II. About 4,500 years ago, Aswan was an important trade and military center. Gold, wood, and spices were traded here, and materials for building temples, obelisks, and pyramids were delivered from the local granite quarries. However, after the construction of the Aswan Dam, most of the city ended up underwater. The Franco-Egyptian Archaeological Mission discovered unique rock reliefs depicting pharaohs, hieroglyphic inscriptions, and other sculptural elements. The work was carried out using modern technologies such as underwater scanning, photogrammetry, and 3D modeling. These methods made it possible to document the discovered artifacts in detail and create their digital copies. Of particular interest is the image of Amenhotep III, who ruled Egypt for 40 years and left a rich legacy. His burial was located in the Theban necropolis on the west bank of the Nile, opposite modern Luxor. Unfortunately, many monuments associated with his era were damaged by floods, but the new discovery gives hope for the restoration of these historical relics. The connection between archaeologists of the past and present. During the excavations of an ancient Gallic settlement near the city of Y in northern France, student archaeologists discovered a 200-year-old message in a glass bottle. The bottle was hidden in a clay pot along with 2 coins. The message was left by the 19th century archaeologist Ferré, who worked at the same site almost 2 centuries ago. The message, written in January 1825, reads, "Peace age." Ferré, a native of Dieppe and a member of various intellectual societies, conducted excavations here in January 1825. He continues his research in this area, known as the Citadel Limb. The excavations, led by archaeologist Guillaume Blondel, were originally aimed at studying an ancient Gaulish settlement located on the cliffs near Dieppe. The site is subject to erosion, which forced emergency excavations to be carried out. The team has already discovered numerous artifacts dating back 2,000 years, including ceramic shards. Ferré's message not only documents the history of research, but also creates a rare connection between archaeologists of the past and present. Mysterious moment. Adam's Bridge. Indian archaeologists intend to thoroughly study the chain of sandbanks between Sri Lanka and India, which Muslims call Adam's Bridge and Hindus call Rama's Bridge, and will answer the question of its origin. According to the epic Ramayana, the ruler Rama ordered the construction of the bridge in order to go to Sri Lanka to fight the demon Ravana, who had kidnapped Sita, the king's beloved. Hindus consider this site sacred. The land bridge also appears in Islamic legends. It was along this path that Adam, exiled from paradise, crossed from the island to the mainland and went to meet Eve. For his part, underwater archaeologist Alak Tripathi believes that Rama's Bridge is indeed a man-made structure. In his opinion, the land bridge could have been built by members of an ancient civilization that, about 4,000 years ago, was forced to flee from the Indian subcontinent to Sri Lanka under the pressure of Aryan tribes. Alak Tripathi will lead an underwater archaeological expedition that the Indian Council of Historical Research will send this summer to determine the origin of the land bridge. Previously, the work was postponed several times. In 2005, the project was canceled due to mass protests by believers, and in 2013, because of the threat of a tsunami. Now, the Indian authorities want to deepen Rama's bridge to facilitate navigation, but Hindus, who make up the majority of the country's population, are protesting against this.
Могила таинственного хирурга.
In Hungary, archaeologists have discovered the grave of a mysterious man, dated to the 1st century AD, in which a set of high-quality surgical instruments was found. This discovery was made near the town of Jászberény, located in the center of the country, where researchers initially conducted excavations in search of Copper Age artifacts. With the help of magnetometric surveying, archaeologists were able to discover a long-abandoned cemetery dating back to the 6th to 9th centuries AD, and began excavating several rows of graves. One of the graves turned out to be older than the others and dated back to the 1st century AD. This burial was shallow and contained the remains of a man who died between the ages of 50 and 60. The researcher was surprised by the presence of metal tools in the grave, which they were able to identify as Roman surgical instruments. The instruments were hidden in 2 wooden chests buried at the feet of the deceased. Scientists note that the instruments found were of very high-quality craftsmanship. The set included instruments such as tweezers, scalpels, needles, and even ancient pliers. They were made of a copper alloy, decorated with silver inlay, and had removable, replaceable steel blades. A small stone mortar was also found in the grave. The wear on its surface indicates that it was used frequently, possibly for making medicines. Such medical kits are extremely rare in the ancient Roman world, and this is possibly the first such find made on the outskirts of the Roman Empire. Who the buried man was remains a matter of speculation, as does the cause of his death. The analysis of the bones did not reveal any visible signs. There were no items or objects found or preserved in the grave itself that could reliably indicate the origin of this person. Therefore, for now, scientists do not know whether this ancient surgeon was a local resident or if he came here from afar. However, a DNA analysis is planned, which may help to solve this mystery. Archaeologists also note that such a medical kit was extremely expensive at that time. Only a very wealthy person could afford to buy it. The presence of such a kit may indicate the high status of the deceased and his professional skills. He may have been one of the best surgeons of his time, and his knowledge and experience were highly valued. The mystery of Orion. Have you ever wondered why many ancient monuments face the constellation Orion? Could it be that from there, from the distant cosmos, gods came to our Earth? Incredible as it may seem, it's a fact. Our ancestors left us an entire system of signs pointing to Orion. They created architecture, cultural masterpieces, complex calendars, and observation points that allowed them to track the positions of stars in the sky. Orion was one of the most popular constellations among the ancients. Its image was even found on a mammoth tusk dated to 32,500 BC. While studying an ancient sanctuary on the Kola Peninsula, scientists noticed an interesting detail. If you connect the locations of the finds with imaginary lines on a map, you get the constellation Orion. And this can no longer be a coincidence. Orion seems to be everywhere. There is no place on Earth where it hasn't been found. Egypt, Mexico, ancient Babylon, ancient Rus. Everywhere it played a crucial role, becoming the center of the heavens. It's probably based on the principle, as above, so below. The ancient Egyptians built their pyramids oriented toward Orion, as if creating a terrestrial map of this constellation. And even the 3 large volcanoes on Mars together form Orion's belt. Is it just a coincidence or a trace of a cosmic connection? And the ancient Egyptians also believed that their gods descended from Orion and Sirius. A treasure trove of Neanderthal remains. Spanish, Danish, and Italian scientists made an unexpected discovery at the Museum of Spain. A box of artifacts that had been stored there since 1986 turned out to be a real treasure trove. Inside, they found 54 Neanderthal bones and teeth. These remains were discovered in the Semanya caves near Barcelona back in the 1970s. Paleontology enthusiast Miguel Osner had overlooked them for many years. The discovery surprised researchers. The bones belonged to 3 individuals, a woman and 2 children aged 11 and 7. These ancient remains are about 50,000 years old. Asner's collection is now recognized as the largest assemblage of Neanderthal remains in the northeastern part of the Iberian Peninsula. An incredible floor mosaic. In the ancient Turkish city of Salka, located in eastern Anatolia, a farmer accidentally discovered an ancient floor mosaic while planting saplings. The mosaic, covering an area of 84 square meters, is believed to date back to the late Roman or early Byzantine period. It impresses with its size, intricate geometric patterns, and depictions of many animals and plants such as a lion, mountain goat, greyhound, deer, bear, and Anatolian leopard. The farmer, Mehmed Amin Swalb, who discovered the artifact, reported the find to the local museum authorities and the gendarmerie. Excavations then began with support from Turkey's Ministry of Culture and Tourism. During the work, the ruins of a church and a wine cellar were found next to the mosaic, which confirms its historical value. The mosaic is well preserved and is an important discovery for the region. The mysterious ornament of Alfred. In 1693 in Somerset County, a farmer accidentally stumbled upon an object that changed historians' perception of early medieval England. Under a layer of soil, the plow uncovered a unique artifact, Alfred's ornament, dating back to the 9th century. This find is striking in its craftsmanship. The item, made of gold, enamel, and quartz, is decorated with an intricate design, and the inscription, "Alfred ordered me to make this." The artifact is associated with the legendary King Alfred the Great, known as one of the most enlightened rulers of England. It is believed that the ornament may have been part of a scepter or a pointer used for reading sacred texts. This instrument symbolizes the union of power, wisdom, and Alfred's pursuit of enlightenment. The connection with UFOs and the mysteries of the past becomes intriguing if you delve into the symbolism of the object. Some researchers suggest that the intricate design of the ornament and its shiny finish might have been inspired by sightings of unusual celestial phenomena. In those times, comets and lights in the sky were perceived as messages from the gods or even extraterrestrial civilizations. Tunnel under the Sphinx. Matt, we're setting out to search for the long-lost Hall of Records, which is believed to be hidden right beneath the Great Sphinx in Egypt. The American medium Edgar Cayce and other mystery enthusiasts are convinced of its existence. In the labyrinth beneath the paws of the Sphinx, in the mysterious Hall of Records, knowledge of astronomy, alchemy, medicine, and even magic's hidden. Researchers are still not sure whether they are real or not. The secrets of the pharaohs, encrypted in the hieroglyphs in the Pyramid of Teti, indicate that they really were passed from hand to hand. They were like funeral gifts. But where is that very library where all this knowledge is kept? Edgar Cayce, during his trance, spoke about the Hall of Records, where the knowledge of ancient cultures is hidden. He claimed that the entrance to the hall begins at the right front paw of the Sphinx, but it has never been found. Traces of cannibalism in Britain. In England, archaeologists have discovered the remains of 37 people from the Bronze Age with signs of cannibalism. The burial was found in a 15-meter deep shaft at Charterhouse, Warren. Analysis of more than 3,000 bones belonging to men, women, and children of various ages showed that all of them died violent deaths. The bones show traces of blunt force trauma, cuts from dismemberment, and even bite marks on the hands and feet. Scientists suggest that cannibalism was ritualistic and could have been a way to humiliate the defeated. The burial also contained remains of large cattle, which researchers believe symbolizes the mixing of human and animal remains to completely dehumanize the victims. This discovery shatters the idea of the peaceful nature of the early Bronze Age and shows that mass violence, dismemberment, and dehumanization of enemies were part of Britain's human history thousands of years ago. The Tomb of the Heavenly Prince. Recently, scientists made a sensational discovery near the city of Zhanyang, China, where they found a 147-meter-long tunnel at a depth of 10 meters with a hidden burial site. Within Xianyang, archaeologists discovered the final resting place of Emperor Xiaomin Di from the Northern Zhou dynasty, who ruled the territory of northern China from 557 to 581 AD. Interestingly, Xiaomin Di refused the usual royal title, preferring the name Heavenly Prince to the honorary title of the Zhou dynasty. His reign was overshadowed by internal strife with his cousin Yuan Hu, which ended with the emperor's death. The secret of the emperor's tomb, designated as M655, was revealed during archaeological work near the road leading to the airport in Shenyang. The tomb has an elongated shape oriented along the north-south axis and contains numerous burial artifacts inside, including ceramic vessels, figurines of warriors and cavalry, camel statues, and figures of mythical creatures. In addition, the discovered epitaph stone bears an inscription confirming the identity of the deceased as Ginyu Wenzue, Duke of Luoyang from the Zhou dynasty, better known as Emperor Xiaomindi. This discovery adds new details to the historical portrait of the ruler. Scientists used lice to get ancient people's DNA. Macromolecules were well preserved in the sticky mass that makes up the egg clutches of parasites that live by feeding on human blood. Scientists from the University of Reading in the United Kingdom have decoded the genomes of 2,000-year-old mummies that were found near the Argentine city of San Juan. Fragments of DNA from the mummified people were preserved in the egg clutches of lice that lived in their hair. The genetic material obtained is remarkably well preserved. DNA analysis made it possible to learn how indigenous people moved across the continent. In particular, scientists discovered that the people from the Uncilta culture, whose mummies were studied by the researchers, are related to the first groups of indigenous people who arrived in South America at the end of the Ice Age. It turned out the ancestors and closest relatives of these indigenous people lived in the jungles of northern Amazonia, not the Andes. In the glue produced by lice, fragments of the MCV ancovirus DNA were found, which apparently used to spread among ancient people through skin parasites. Previously, scientists didn't even try to look for DNA remains in human hair or animal fur, since they are almost entirely made up of the protein keratin. Usually, genetic material can be extracted from bones. As for the aforementioned mummies, they were so fragile that researchers were not allowed to touch their skeletons, which forced them to take an unusual approach and carefully study the hair. Ancient bone floor. In the Dutch city of Alkmaar, archaeologists discovered a unique find, a section of flooring made from animal bones. This rare discovery was made on Achterdam Street during the renovation of a building. A bone floor is truly a rarity, especially for the province of North Holland, although similar examples have already been found in other historic cities in the region, such as Hoorn, Enkhuizen, and Edam. Archaeologists discovered that the floor is partially made up of bones from the middle sections of the legs and feet of cattle. The bones were carefully processed to achieve the same height and arranged in a pattern. Some were placed with the ends facing up, others with the flat cuts. They filled the gaps between the tiles of the old ceramic flooring, creating a unique decorative pattern. The purpose of the bones in the floor's construction remains a mystery. Perhaps they were used because of their availability and low cost, or due to certain functions of the building. Perhaps some specific activity related to meat trade or animal processing took place here, but the exact reasons have yet to be determined.
Мыльная леди из Филадельфии.
In 1875, during renovation work at an old cemetery in Philadelphia, two strange bodies were discovered, a man and a woman who did not look the way corpses usually do. Instead, their bodies turned into soap people due to the process of saponification or soap formation. This process occurs when the body's fatty tissue, under certain conditions such as alkaline soil and specific enzymes, turns into a wax-like substance resembling soap. The scientific term for this condition of the body is adiposury. After their discovery, the remains became part of museum exhibits. In the 1990s, the man's body was removed from the exhibit for detailed study. Technological studies revealed the presence of pins in the fabrics that were used to secure the burial shroud. Studies also showed that the man was a European who died at the age of 40 to 50 and had engaged in physical labor. The woman's body was also studied. Pins were also found in her remains, and blonde locks of hair were preserved on her skull. Her skeleton was strong, indicating good health, but she was almost completely toothless. Currently, the man's body is in the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, and the woman's body is in the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. Cases of saponification are rare, but they show how unique the processes that occur with human remains after death can be. Thanks to the large amount of fatty tissue, their bodies were able to be preserved in good condition for many years. Research and study of such rare cases as the soap couple allows scientists to better understand the processes that occur in the human body after death, as well as to expand our knowledge of the history and culture of different eras. Why is it forbidden to climb the pyramid? The top stone of the pyramid is a kind of cherry on the cake, the final touch in its construction. Considering the harmony and beauty of the pyramid, it's unlikely that its builders would have left it unfinished. There is a theory that the top stone was made of gold and that at some point in the distant past it was removed from the top. But it's hard to believe considering the structure's height of over 140 meters. Spanish researcher Miguel Sanchez suggests that a huge spherical stone was installed at the top of the pyramid, symbolizing the Eye of Horus. It could have served as a tribute to Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. Its size and shape were designed with mathematics, geometry, and astronomy in mind. There is an interesting story connected with the top of the pyramid and Sir Siemens. Some time ago, the British inventor Sir Siemens found himself at the top of the pyramid, and as he was about to celebrate his achievement with a glass of wine, he was met with a surprise. He was shocked by electricity. The Arab guides, seeing Sir Siemens get shocked, got scared and tried to catch him. But Sir Siemens pointed the bottle at them and gave them a powerful electric shock. Since then, it has been forbidden to climb to the top of the pyramid. Faceless woman's skeleton. In Germany, archaeologists have discovered a mysterious 9th century burial. The man was lying unharmed, but the wife's facial bones were missing and no burial items were found next to her. The excavation took place near Schleben, at the site where the royal palace of Helfta once stood. The woman was 1.55 meters tall, but her skeleton had a defect. Her face had been hollowed out. The man, apparently, held an important position. He may have been a high-ranking official or a military man, as indicated by the items found with him: a knife, a belt, and parts of an official staff. At the same time, no accessories were found with the woman, which was particularly interesting to the researchers. Felix Berman from Saxony-Anhalt suggested that the woman might have been a Christian, while her husband still adhered to pagan traditions. This could explain the absence of burial items, as the Christian tradition rejected earthly ornaments after death. Santa Claus's tomb. In Turkey, archaeologists discovered a sarcophagus that may be the tomb of St. Nicholas, the prototype of Santa Claus. The discovery was made in the Church of St. Nicholas in Demre, Antalya, during excavations that have been ongoing since 1889. The burial was found in an annex next to the church. The sarcophagus, about 2 meters long, is made of local limestone. It was partially buried in the ground at a depth of up to 2 meters. Its design, with a raised, sloping lid, resembles other tombs in the region. Scientists suggest that the church was built on the burial site of St. Nicholas, Archbishop of Myra, known for his good deeds. His generosity and secret gifts inspired the legends of Santa Claus. A giant Viking burial archaeologist made a unique discovery in the village of Osum, east of Odense, Denmark. They discovered more than 50 well-preserved Viking skeletons, which is rare for such burials. In addition to the skeletons, 5 cremation burials were found, which further increases the value of the discovery. According to archaeologist Michael Bore-Lundio, such discoveries open up new opportunities to study the health, nutrition, and origins of people from that time. It may be possible to find out if they were related. The burial site, covering about 2,000 square meters, dates back to the 9th and 10th centuries before the reign of Gorm and Thera. This is one of the largest Viking burial sites found on the island of Funen. Some graves indicate the high status of those buried. For example, the burial of a noblewoman who was buried in a wagon with items such as a necklace of glass beads, a key, and a knife with silver trim. At her feet was a wooden chest, the contents of which remain a mystery. A bronze brooch and a piece of rock crystal, probably brought from Norway, were also found in the burials. These findings confirm that the Vikings had extensive trade connections. Ritual mask in Japan. Archaeologists discovered a unique wooden mask from the 3rd century in the ruins of Nishi Iwata, Osaka Prefecture, Japan. Researchers believe that the mask was used in ceremonial rituals during agricultural festivals about 1,800 years ago, in the Yayoi period. This find is one of 3 wooden masks from this period that have been discovered. The mask, carved from cedar, measures 30 centimeters in height and 18 centimeters in width, with holes for the eyes and mouth and small holes on the sides for ties. It was found at a depth of 3 meters next to a wooden water bucket and a charred tool resembling a hoe. These items may have been used at agricultural festivals. During the Yayoi period, the Japanese transitioned to a settled agricultural society and used farming methods brought from Korea. According to Kaoru Terasawa, director of the Makimuku Archaeological Research Center, the mask could have been used solely as a ceremonial object, as it is too heavy to wear. Terasawa added that the mask might have represented the spirit of the head, symbolizing the authority of Akime, the title of the ruler of the Yamato kingdom. Meteorite finds in tombs. Even 2,000 years before the beginning of the Iron Age, the Egyptians had already learned to work with meteorite iron. In ancient times, the sky was clearer, and our ancestors navigated by the stars and watched for falling meteorites. When meteors fell without burning up in the atmosphere, they became meteorites, cosmic stones. Scientists have confirmed that 3 small beads found in the tomb were used as jewelry in 3200 BC and were made from iron that came from meteorites. The ancient Egyptians drilled holes in it, just as they did with other precious stones, and then made precious necklaces. Interestingly, meteorites were as valuable to them as precious stones and metals. A coffin on the roof. For centuries, human bodies have served as objects of anatomical study, and executed criminals were often the main source. However, as the number of death sentences decreased in the 18th and 19th centuries, medical schools began to suffer from a shortage of bodies for research. This problem gave rise to resurrectionists, people who dug up freshly buried corpses to sell to anatomists. To protect against such thefts, cages and traps were installed in cemeteries, and guards were hired. Some bodies were even left in mortuaries, so that decomposition would make them useless to robbers. But the Englishman Henry Trick found his own extremely unusual way. Henry lived in the 18th century in Stevenage, was a wealthy grocer, and was respected in society. However, one day, he witnessed grave robbers digging up a body in the cemetery. This shocked him so much that he decided not to let this happen to him. In his will, Henry asked for his body to be placed in a lead coffin and set under the rafters of his own barn, far from the cemetery. He even provided a punishment for his relatives if his last will was violated. After his death in 1724, his body was indeed placed in the barn, which attracted a lot of curious visitors. Over time, the barn became a tavern, and Henry's coffin became a local attraction. However, his remains met a sad fate. Visitors and soldiers took them as souvenirs, and by the beginning of the 20th century, only a small part of the skeleton remained. Today, Henry's coffin still rests in the barn, but the remains are lost, leaving behind only legends of his ghost. The pyramids we see today are far from how they looked when they were first created. Don't believe it? Let's dive into history. Ancient engineers used an astonishing 6.1 million tons of limestone to build the main pyramid of Giza, the largest and oldest of them all. It was built by order of Pharaoh Khufu. But what do you think it looked like before? No, it wasn't sand brown. It was covered with a shiny layer of limestone. But unfortunately, over time, many of the facing stones were reused. It probably started during the reign of Tutankhamun and continued for many centuries. Add to that the earthquake of 1303 AD, which shook them a bit. Nowadays, the pyramids still amaze us with their durability. For example, the Pyramid of Khafra, which has even preserved some of its original casing stones, it looks as if one peak fits into another. It's amazing. So-called pyramidions were installed covered with electrum, a shiny mixture of gold and silver. Unfortunately, most of them have been lost over time, but some examples can still be seen in museums. Scythian bone scepter. During archaeological excavations in Bulgaria, an unusual item was discovered. a scepter made of bone, presumably belonging to a Scythian military leader from the 5th century BC. The discovery was made by a group of archaeologists led by Professor Vasily Nikolov in the northeastern part of the country and shed light on the history of the Scythians, nomadic peoples who traveled across the territory of modern-day Bulgaria. The Scythians were known for their unique way of life and cultural heritage, and the discovery of the scepter in a rare burial adds to our knowledge about this mysterious people. The grave, which resembles the shape of a boot with a cutout, had previously been excavated but had not been studied until now. The discovered scepter, 39 centimeters long and made of 2 joined bone pieces, demonstrates the magnificent craftsmanship of Scythian artisans. On one side, it is decorated with the image of an eagle's beak, and on the other, with an anthropomorphic depiction of a human. Such artifacts, decorated with elements in the form of birds, especially the eagle, held special significance in the religious life of the Scythians. This artifact highlights the martial and spiritual history of the Scythians, their respect for their ancestors, and their skill in creating complex items that preserve cultural traditions. Silver amulet. In Germany, not far from Frankfurt, archaeologists discovered a unique artifact, a silver amulet known as the Frankfurt silver inscription. This is the oldest evidence of Christianity north of the Alps, dating to approximately 230–270 AD. The discovery significantly expands our understanding of the spread of Christianity in the Roman Empire. The amulet was found during excavations of a Roman cemetery in the Heilmannstrasse area in the ancient city of Nida. Among the 127 burials, special attention was drawn to the grave of a man aged 30 to 45 years. Along with unusual burial gifts such as ceramics and an incense burner, a rolled-up piece of silver foil was found under his chin. Analysis showed that this is a phylactery amulet intended to protect its wearer. The contents of the inscription, applied to the silver, were deciphered using computed tomography. The text in Latin consists of 18 lines and contains exclusively Christian formulas: holy, 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 and in the name of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. It also includes quotes from the Epistle to the Philippians by the Apostle Paul. This finding proves that Christianity spread in the region several decades earlier than previously thought. Nida, as a major Roman cultural and administrative center, became a place where the new religion was able to take root in a multicultural environment. The first image of the inhabitants of the legendary Tartessos. Archaeologists from Spain are studying the ancient site of Casas de Turunuelo. They have found unique stone busts of the ancient Iberian civilization of Tartessos. This is the first image of the Tartessians that the modern world has seen. Tartessos was an ancient city in the south of Spain. The Tartessians were engaged in trade and metal extraction. This civilization is considered one of the oldest in Western Europe. The Tartessian culture was a blend of local Spanish and Phoenician traditions. The people of Tartessos were skilled metallurgists and knew how to work with metals. Recently discovered stone busts had beautiful faces, jewelry, and hairstyles reminiscent of ancient sculptures from the Middle East and Asia. We know very little about the Tartessians, and their history is full of mysteries. Their city, Tartessos, was located by the Guadalquivir River in Spain. The Greek historian Ephor describes Tartessos as a thriving civilization engaged in metal production and trade. Archaeologists do not know exactly who the Tartessians were. An indigenous population with Eastern influence or a Phoenician colony, scholars believe that the discovered busts depict the gods of the Tartessians, although it was previously thought that their religion did not use images of gods. The sculptures were found at the site of an ancient temple. They may have been part of a stone fresco featuring deities and a Tartessian warrior.
Загадочное вещество в гробу.
In the northwest of China, in the Xinjiang region, archaeologists made a shocking discovery. In an ancient coffin about 3,600 years old, where Bronze Age mummies were found, a mysterious substance was discovered on the neck of one of the women. Today, scientists are confident that this is the oldest cheese in the world. Researchers extracted DNA from this substance and found out that it is kefir cheese made from cows' and goats' milk. This discovery is important for understanding the origin of kefir and the evolution of probiotic bacteria. Xiaomei Fu from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, together with her colleagues, analyzed the bacteria, yeast, and proteins in the sample, which made it possible to identify the ancient cheese. Studies show that kefir cheese was important for people of that time. It may have been placed as part of burial customs or as food for the afterlife. Interestingly, two types of cheese were found in the coffin, one made from goat's milk, the other from cow's milk. Genetic studies have shown that the microorganisms in the cheese are similar to modern kefir strains found in East Asia and Tibet. Because of this, the question arises of kefir's geographical origin. It was previously believed that kefir originated in the Caucasus, but new data suggest the possibility of a second source in Xinjiang. These results show that kefir spread around the world in different ways, and its history is closely linked to the evolution of human culture.
Инструменты египтян.
Traces of stone cutting were discovered in Egypt more than 100 years ago. It was the legendary pyramid explorer, Sir William Flinders Petrie. He noticed these traces even on the sarcophagus in the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau. He suggested that the sarcophagus was cut from granite using huge saws 3 meters long. Saw marks can also be found all over Egypt. For example, near the Great Pyramid, there are the ruins of a temple. There, on the stone floor, numerous saw marks have been preserved. At the beginning of the 20th century, German archaeologists even deliberately displayed blocks with saw marks for public viewing during the restoration of the temple. Historians suggest that in ancient times, the Egyptians used copper saws, and since copper is softer than granite and basalt, it is assumed that the Egyptians used quartz sand as an abrasive. A message to Galileo Galilei. The middle finger of the right hand of the great Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei, now kept in the Galileo Museum in Florence, has long become a symbol of scientific progress and the indomitable spirit of reason. This strange exhibit, enclosed in a hanging gilded glass egg, was removed from Galileo's body almost a century after his death. Why did this particular finger become such an important symbol? Galileo, who became famous for his discoveries in astronomy, became the main opponent of the church dogmas about the geocentric model of the world. His works on the heliocentric system were seen as a challenge not only to religious beliefs, but also to the very idea of the unchanging structure of the world. The middle finger, as some believe, symbolizes the scientist's firm refusal to submit to dogmas, defending the truth based on observations and scientific experiments. Today, in the era of space exploration, Galileo's finger can be seen as an ironic message to those who continue to ignore scientific achievements, whether they are flat Earth supporters or conspiracy theorists. Galileo, who was the first to see Jupiter's, moons, and the stars of the Milky Way through a telescope, expanded humanity's understanding of the universe. His legacy continues to inspire those who seek the truth about our place in the cosmos, even if that truth may include the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Surprise scientists after 450 years, more than 4 centuries later, after her death in 1582, Saint Teresa of Avila once again attracted the attention of believers around the world. At the end of August 2023, her remains were exhumed and scientists discovered that the saint's body had not undergone the process of decomposition. A team of researchers compared modern photographs with images taken in 1914 and confirmed that the saint's face remained clearly recognizable. The exhumation was carried out in the Diocese of Avila in Spain under the supervision of Marco Chiesa, the general postulator of the Discalced Carmelite order. The Catholic Church shared this news on social media, stating, "Her body remains incorrupt. Look for God's miracles." The silver coffin, encased in marble, was opened to study the state of the saint's health at the time of her death. Chiesa noted that although it is difficult to determine the skin color due to mummification, the facial features, especially in the middle part, remained clear, which was confirmed by both doctors and experts. Saint Teresa, a Spanish nun, became the first woman to be elevated to the rank of Doctor of the Church in 1970 for her significant contribution to church teaching. She was canonized in 1622, and her body has repeatedly been described as incorrupt. Researchers believe that studying the remains of Saint Teresa may shed light on the reasons for such long preservation of the body and provide important recommendations for the preservation of relics. 10 keys kept by different individuals and organizations were used to open the tomb. The Duke of Alba, the city of Alba de Tormes, the General Superior of the Carmelite Order, and the King of Spain. After opening the tomb, St. Teresa's remains were moved to a secure room and examined by doctors and scientists. It was decided to conduct a visual inspection, take photographs and x-rays, and send samples to a laboratory in Italy for further research. The full results of the analysis will only be available in a few months. The study showed that St. Teresa had heel spurs on her feet, calcium growths that caused severe pain when walking. Despite this, Teresa continued to travel until her death, covering significant distances. In 1582, she traveled to the city of Alba de Tormes, despite her poor health, to visit her friend Anne of St. Bartholomew. The saint felt unwell and died 3 days after her arrival. Local dioceses, as well as scientific and religious organizations, continue to study her remains. They hope to gain new information about her life, health, and how St. Teresa was able to maintain her strength of spirit despite all her physical suffering. Rate this video with a thumbs up or down and share it with your friends. Thank you for watching it until the end. Goodbye, everyone.